From the infinite reaches of the cosmos to the limitless power within you. Welcome to Manifesting Cosmic Consciousness with Warren Russell. Every episode is a journey into higher awareness, universal wisdom, and the energy that connects us all. Prepare to expand your mind, elevate your spirit, and unlock your true potential. Now, here's your host, Warren Russell.
Welcome, this is Warren Russell, and the show is Manifesting Cosmic Consciousness. Today we have a lady who happened to have been the foundation of establishing, in a hypnotherapy kind of way, the constructs of cosmic consciousness. God damn it. Dolores Cannon was born April 19th, 1931, and became the mother of four and traveled the world with her husband, who was a Navy officer. Both together developed the quantum healing hypnosis technique, which allowed people to be in touch with the soul and with their subconscious mind. The clients were able to have a much clearer understanding of who they were and what motivated them, and to tap into their unconscious mind. She used this regressive hypnotherapy technique to cure persons of all ailments. And she even once said, "There isn't any ailment I can't solve with this technique." We have today Dolores Cannon.
This is what happens when the most prolific hypnotherapist of the modern era spends 45 years recording what human consciousness reveals at its deepest layer and leaves behind a final transmission that stunned everyone in the room who heard it. After 19 books, thousands of sessions, and a lifetime of work most people never fully understood while she was living it, Dolores Cannon's last message to humanity was not what anyone expected. Not a technique, not information. Something so disarmingly simple that people reportedly had to look down at their hands because they couldn't hold her gaze while she said it. To understand why that moment matters, you first need to understand who Dolores Cannon actually was and how radically different her life looked from the outside compared to what was quietly unfolding inside it. The ordinary beginning. Born on April 19th, 1931, in St. Louis, Missouri, Dolores Cannon's early life carried no outward signal of what was coming. She married a Navy man, raised four children, and traveled the world as a military wife, adapting constantly to new places and new communities, living out of suitcases, building small lives in unfamiliar cities. A grandmother, a woman with soft eyes, and an Arkansas drawl that put people immediately at ease. Nothing about her suggested she would spend the next 5 decades mapping the architecture of the human soul. Nothing suggested she would develop a method of hypnosis that would eventually reach thousands of people across dozens of countries, or compile what many have called one of the most extraordinary libraries of spiritual knowledge the modern world has assembled. And yet that is exactly what she became, and it all started on a single night in 1968. The night that changed everything. During a hypnosis session in 1968, Dolores put a woman into a trance, and what came through next stopped her cold. A voice emerged that bore no resemblance to the woman underneath it, not in its knowledge, not in its tone, not in what it seemed to understand. This voice described things it could not have visited, carried a wisdom so ancient and so precise that Dolores sat in her chair and understood, right then, that her ordinary life had ended. Something else entirely had just begun. That session became a doorway. And for the next 45 years, she walked through it every single day with thousands of different people. The method and what it revealed. Dolores built her own approach to hypnosis, calling it quantum healing hypnosis technique. And what distinguished it wasn't the hypnosis itself, but how deep she went. Rather than working with the surface layer of the mind, the anxious, chattering part most people spend their whole lives inside, she learned to bypass it entirely and access what she called the subconscious. not in the Freudian sense of repressed memories and childhood wounds, but something far older and more expansive, the part of a person that remains, as she described it, directly and eternally connected to Source. The part that has never forgotten who it is. The part that knows everything. Working through that deeper layer across decades of devoted, meticulous sessions, Dolores assembled something the world hadn't quite seen before, a detailed, cross-referenced map of the human soul's journey across time, dimensions, lifetimes, and realities. 19 books came out of that work, and those who knew her consistently described them not as written but as received, transcribed from sessions conducted with a level of attention so precise that the information flowing through seemed to exceed anything the individual client could have known on their own. Her gift, by every account from those who studied with her, was not spectacle or proclamation. It was listening with a depth of attention so complete that the people across from her seemed to access something far older and wiser than their everyday selves. The 2012 transmission. By 2012, Dolores was 81 years old, and the lecture she delivered that year became one of the most watched and most discussed of her entire career. Standing on that stage, she carried the energy of someone who could feel time narrowing, not for herself, but for the message, for making sure what she held inside her reached the people who needed it. The lecture, recorded as Transformation, an audience with Dolores Cannon, covered everything she had spent her career exploring. Life, death, reincarnation, manifestation, the new earth, the nature of existence itself. What those who attended remember most vividly is the urgency. She had always been a teacher, but in 2012 she was something else, someone making sure a delivery got completed before the window closed. 2 years later, on October 18th, 2014, Dolores Cannon passed away at Washington Regional Medical Center in Fayetteville, Arkansas, at 83 years old. The final transmissions she had given were already sealed, already waiting for the right people to find them. The final transmission? The surprise. Here is where the story goes somewhere almost nobody predicted. When people familiar with her work imagined what Dolores Cannon might offer in her final public transmission, her final gift to the people she had spent her life serving, they expected more of what had made her work so extraordinary. More accounts of past lives and other dimensions. More data about consciousness. More answers to the staggering questions her career had always raised. More of what filled those 19 books. What she gave instead was something so plain that people in the room reportedly couldn't hold her gaze while she said it. She told them, "You already know everything I've been trying to teach you. You've always known. The only thing standing between you and your true life is the fear you keep choosing to believe is real. Sit with that for a moment. After 45 years, after 19 books, after thousands of sessions with thousands of souls accessing what she described as the deepest layers of human consciousness, the greatest hypnotherapist of her era looked at humanity and said the answer was inside you the whole time, and fear is the only thing hiding it. Throughout those final transmissions, she kept returning to 4 words over and over, as though encoding them into time itself, so they would survive beyond her body, beyond her books, beyond everything she had built. Release, forgive, love, remember, unpacking the 4 words. Release. Dolores was not speaking in abstractions here. The things she asked people to release were specific. The old stories carried forward that no longer belong to you, the old wounds dragged along like chains, the exhausting performance of being someone you were never meant to be, the belief that you are ordinary, the terror that you are not enough. These were the things she named. Not because releasing them was easy, but because she had sat across from thousands of people and watched what happened when they finally did, and not once had she seen anyone regret it. Forgive. This one, she stated clearly, is not for the people who hurt you, and not because they deserve it. Forgiveness, in her framework, carries nothing to do with approval of what happened. It's freedom. The resentment you hold, she said, is a cage you built around yourself, and you're the only one imprisoned inside it. She had witnessed this particular passage hundreds of times, and considered it one of the most reliable routes from suffering to clarity she had ever observed. "You forgive to set yourself free," she said. "Not them. Love, not the conditional kind the world tends to teach, the variety that arrives with terms and performances and limits. The love she meant carries no opposite. After decades of regression sessions, across thousands of clients accessing what she called the deepest layers of their being, she kept arriving at the same place. Across every lifetime, every culture, every dimension her clients ever described, the foundation beneath all of it was identical. She called it the foundation of everything. Nothing else, she said, is ultimately real. Remember, this was her most urgent word, and the choice of it was deliberate. Not learn, not become, not achieve, prove, or earn. Remember, her position, built from everything retrieved across thousands of sessions, was that no one arrives here empty. Every soul arrives full of light, full of wisdom, full of purpose. The world then spends years convincing you otherwise, and her entire 45-year career was one long campaign to undo that lie. What she found in every soul, there is something Dolores said in her final years that deserves careful attention. Across all of her thousands of sessions, all those lifetimes and dimensions and timelines, she never encountered a single soul that wasn't beautiful. Not one. Not people who had explored past lives involving violence. Not people broken open by trauma. Not the
Dolores
ones
Cannon has written 19 books, and they can be found on her website, which is www.dolorescannon.com. Now, with this technique, she's helped thousands of people all throughout the world, and she's famous for helping people to tap into their unconscious abilities. We have those. So I would say for those individuals who want to even become a practitioner, you can go to her website, www.qhhtofficial.com. It's all open to us to think differently, to be differently, and to expand and develop ourselves and to become super in terms of manifesting cosmic consciousness. I'll go back to her and I'll be back in a minute.
believing themselves unworthy, unlovable, beyond any kind of redemption. Every single soul she ever accessed at the level of the true self was, in her own words, radiant, complete, already home. The subconscious never lies, she said, and the subconscious never once told her that a soul was anything less than magnificent. Why you are here now? In her final years, Dolores grew increasingly direct about something she had been building toward for decades, a specific understanding of why certain people are alive on Earth at this particular moment. What she retrieved across thousands of regression sessions spanning decades, conducted with clients who had no knowledge of each other's results, pointed to the same conclusion. The souls incarnating on Earth right now, particularly those drawn to this kind of exploration, those who carry a persistent ache for something deeper, did not arrive randomly. They volunteered. Before birth, in a state of full conscious awareness, they understood exactly what they were choosing: the difficulty, the forgetting, the disorientation of coming into physical form. They chose it anyway. They raised their hand. They said they wanted to go, wanted to help, wanted to be there for this shift. These volunteers chose specific families, she said, families that would shape their wounds in exactly the right places. They chose specific heartbreaks that would crack them open precisely where they needed cracking. The particular loneliness and confusion and persistent sense of not quite belonging, that combination, across thousands of sessions, turned out to be the thing most likely to drive a person inward instead of outward. And inward, she said, is the only direction that leads home. The volunteers didn't come to suffer. They came to remember. Suffering is simply what fills the space between forgetting and remembering. The session about permission. In her final years, Dolores described one session she considered among the most extraordinary of her entire career. A middle-aged woman came to her carrying no dramatic spiritual crisis, only a quiet and persistent sense that something was waiting for her, something she couldn't name. When the subconscious spoke through this woman, it didn't speak about past lives or dimensions or the nature of reality. Its message arrived shockingly direct. Tell her she is allowed to stop performing now. Tell her the role she has been playing for other people's comfort is not her true self. Tell her the life she built to be acceptable is not the life she came here to live. Tell her she is allowed. She is allowed to be real now. The woman wept for 40 minutes, not from grief, but from relief, the kind that only comes when something held for a very long time finally gets set down. Dolores said this session captured something she had witnessed hundreds of times in different forms. The single greatest obstacle between human beings and their actual purpose is not lack of skill, not lack of opportunity, not lack of intelligence. It's permission. People sit and wait for someone to tell them they are allowed to be who they actually are. And Dolores Cannon spent 45 years being that someone for whoever came through her door. 3 things she needed humanity to understand. Toward the end of her life, Dolores returned again and again to 3 specific things she said she needed humanity to grasp above all else. The first, death is not what you think it is. Not an ending, but a transition. And the thousands of souls who described the experience of crossing over across her decades of sessions, independently, with no knowledge of each other's accounts, reached for the same word consistently. They called it relief. Not darkness, not trauma. Relief. The sensation of putting down something very heavy you have been carrying for a very long time. The second, you are not your circumstances. Not your body, not your diagnosis, not your bank account, not your relationship status, not the story your family handed you about who you were. An eternal soul wearing those things temporarily, and the costume, she said plainly, is not you. It never was. And it can be changed by changing the frequency you choose to operate at. The third, and the one she returned to most frequently with the most visible emotion, you are not alone. Profound loneliness had moved through thousands of her sessions, the devastating isolation of being someone who perceives reality at a depth the world around them doesn't always share. She wanted those people, especially those people, to know you are surrounded, you are held. Forces are working on your behalf in spaces you cannot see, but can absolutely feel if you choose to pay attention. The practice she left. In her final public transmissions, Dolores shared a practice she said had produced some of the most striking transformations she had ever witnessed, one she designed specifically for people who didn't need a formal session but simply needed permission and a doorway. She called it the subconscious conversation. Before anything else in the morning, before the phone, before the obligations, before the world fills you up with its noise, lie still. Not meditating, not trying to accomplish anything, just lying still for 5 minutes in the borderland between sleep and waking. She used the word borderland deliberately, that is where the subconscious runs warm and accessible and close. In that stillness, ask one question, the same question she taught across decades. What do I need to know today? Not what do you want, not what should you do, but what do you need to know? Then go completely quiet and listen, not with your ears, but with your entire body. The answer may arrive as a feeling, a word, a color, a sudden warmth in your chest, and it will not come from your mind. It will come from somewhere deeper and calmer than your mind has ever been. Whatever surfaces, trust it, write it down, honor it, act on it if it calls for action. She was direct about this part. The subconscious will always speak, but it will only keep speaking to those who demonstrate they are willing to listen. Every time you dismiss what comes through, you close the channel slightly. Every time you trust it, you open it wider. Each evening before sleep, she taught a simple clearing. Place both hands on your heart, take 3 deep breaths. Then say aloud if possible, because spoken words, she found, carry more weight. I release everything from this day that no longer serves my soul. I forgive myself for every moment I forgot who I was. I am grateful. I am love. I am going home. 7 lines, spoken with sincerity, even imperfect sincerity. Practiced consistently over 30 days. She said these words would reshape the emotional architecture of the person using them more thoroughly than any amount of intellectual understanding ever could. And once a day, at any moment that feels right, she asked people to declare aloud with full voice and full intention, "I remember who I am. I know why I came. I am not afraid anymore." You don't need to believe it completely the first time or the 10th. The power builds. Every time you speak it, it becomes more true because words spoken from the soul in her understanding are not just communication. They are creation. How she left. In the final months of her life, the people closest to Dolores noticed something they struggled to name, eventually settling on the word peace. Not the peace of someone who had given up, not resignation, the peace of someone who had finished, who had delivered what they came to deliver, who had kept their promise. Her words in those final weeks, "I've been looking at what's on the other side for so long, it doesn't look like the end to me. It looks like what I've been working toward." After 45 years of listening to thousands of souls describe the crossing over with identical language, peace, light, relief, homecoming, she was not afraid. She went, by every account from those who knew her, exactly the way she had always described it. Gently, like setting something down. And she left everything behind. Every session, every transcript, every carefully recorded word of retrieved wisdom. All of it preserved deliberately and lovingly for the person who would eventually need it. The whole transmission in one place. What Dolores Cannon's final work revealed was not a secret, not hidden knowledge released for the first time. It was something older and simpler than any of the extraordinary material she had spent her life collecting. You are eternal. You are loved. You are home, not eventually, not once you earn it, not when you finally get everything right, but now, in this body, in this moment, in this ordinary and confusing and sometimes beautiful life. The home you have been searching for is not a destination you haven't reached yet. It's the frequency you touch in your greatest moments of stillness. It's what you feel when you forget to be afraid. It's what you are when you stop performing and simply exist. She spent 45 years traveling the world, standing on stages across dozens of countries, sitting across from thousands of clients, answering letters from strangers, keeping records of sessions spanning decades. All of it, every last piece of it, pointed toward one thing she needed to say in as many ways as she possibly could, to as many people as she could possibly reach before her time was done. Release what no longer belongs to you. Forgive not for them, but for yourself. Love without conditions, because that is what you are made of. And remember who you are. Remember why you came. Remember that you were never ordinary, never unworthy, never as lost as it felt. You were always on your way here, and you arrived exactly on time.
There have been many people who can become practitioners of this kind of consciousness. And again, for those people who want to go to the website and look out for more information, go to www.qhhtofficial.com. Today, there are many souls who are being incarnated on this planet to help us discover discovery. We talk about William Tompkins in his book, Selected by Extraterrestrials. He said, all the information that we've been taught at many universities and colleges is basically a lie, and it's disinformation. For instance, he also said that the planet called the moon is not a planet. It's an observatory that aliens have been occupying for many, many hundreds of thousands of years to observe us, as in the motion picture by Jim Carrey called as in the motion picture that Jim Carrey has talked about being the Truman Show. If you haven't seen the Truman Show, I say Google it and take a look at it. We will do more shows with like Linda Moulton Howe, who's been a researcher in this field since 1979. Laura Eisenhower, the great-great-granddaughter of President Eisenhower. By the way, President Eisenhower has been documented to have met with alien forces back in 1952 and 1954 and made agreements with him to continue to abduct us and given us some technology in place of that. So we will have Elizabeth April on the show, who talks with the Galactic Command on a day-by-day basis, giving us a briefing on what we should do as we become aware and disclosure becomes a reality. So Steven Spielberg has just finished a motion picture called Discovery Day. I say, take a look at that 2 or 3 times, and you get a sense of where we are going. So the age of discovery, the age of disclosure is here. Stay tuned to the Cosmic Disclosure, and we will bring others to the table to help us understand what we need to do and where we need to go.
As our journey through the cosmos comes to a close, remember this. The universe is always responding to the energy you create. Continue to manifest with purpose, live with intention, and let your consciousness guide your path. Thank you for joining Manifesting Cosmic Consciousness with Warren Russell. Until next time, keep reaching for the stars and never stop exploring the infinite possibilities within.